We live in a globalized world, interconnected, in which events and developments far away have an immediate impact here at home, potentially devastating. And in that world, we need to have partners internationally to deal with the problems out there. Existing international institutions can solve some of these problems some of the time, but the most capable partners are the democracies around the world, both in Europe and Asia, where we have long-standing alliances, but increasingly we need democracies around the world, in India and Brazil and Latin America and South Africa, to work together with the United States to solve problems of common concerns. So somehow we need to figure out, how do we get global partners? And why not choose the ones that are most likely to share our values, that when they cooperate with us are most likely to share our interests, and work with them both to improve existing institutions and to provide means of addressing real problems together. I think it would do a number of different things. First and most importantly, the countries within the concert would cooperate on helping to change, reform, and adapt existing international institutions, starting with the United Nations. Wouldn't it be nice if, on the questions of human rights and democracy, countries that actually respect human rights and are democratic were to agree, rather than to figure out whether you have an African vote or some other regional vote? Secondly, it would be about promoting democracy by having a club that has of democratic countries, that has strong ties among the countries. You are creating incentives for others perhaps to change their political systems and to adapt and change in ways that make it more likely that they become members. Third, it is about the democracies in the world are those who have the greatest financial resources and the greatest number of the greatest wealth to be used for economic development and sustainability, which they would be better able to do if they were to coordinate their practices and include not only Western countries that have traditionally tried to cooperate, but also countries that have come up in more recent years and developed in more recent years in the South. And finally, it's about a security dialogue, about terrorism, about proliferation, and indeed, even down the road on the question of when and how to use force, not as a decision-making organ to replace existing institutions, but at least to start to have a dialogue on under what circumstances force might be a legitimate form of solving problems. I'm not looking for an organization that supplants the United Nations. I'm looking for an organization that can make the United Nations more effective. Both by having the membership of the Concert of Democracies work within that organization to force, to try to persuade people to reform the organization, to adapt it to the current world, and to make it a more effective means of action in the world. But there will be times in which the United Nations either cannot agree or the issues are beyond the United Nations to address, and which a smaller organization may and where the interests and values are shared to a greater degree, may be more effective, and indeed for the people who belong to the Concert of Democracies, more legitimate in acting. Well, originally the Community of Democracies was fundamentally focused on democracy promotion only. What I'm talking about is, how do you enhance international cooperation in a globalized world with issues that may not, in many instances won't have anything to do with democracy promotion around the world. So that's one key difference. However, the Community Democracies might well be a central part either of the concert, or indeed become the basis for out of which one could grow a concert of democracies that has larger interests and larger capabilities and larger concerns to be addressed than just the ones that have been traditional among the communities. One of the things in the Community Democracies that has changed for the better is it started off as an organization that was in many ways too large, that had invited countries that frankly aren't democracies, and now over time it has developed a set of criteria that are more stringent, and the membership invitation list tends to be smaller and more focused on what countries that are true democracies. That's a step forward. I thought Tom made a number of very valid points, but I think I disagree in two fundamental ways. One is, I don't think that the Concert of Democracies is first and foremost about democracy promotion. There are many different ways in which you could do that. And second is the notion that democracies disagree, as they in fact do these days, on a whole host of issues. That's true, but one of the real reasons why you want to have an institution is that institutions tend to change and socialize countries in their behavior and in their interests. And over time, the value of the institution, of maintaining membership in the institution, becomes a consideration in how countries decide on particular issues, and that even when they disagree in a particular course of action, they are willing to find a way to compromise and in fact come up with a better policy in order to maintain that unity of the alliance. That's the history of NATO for the last 60 years, and frankly I think it's one we can replicate in the case of the concert of democracies.